Hey everyone, welcome to lesson 1. And today we're going to be talking about trade and economy. And economy is really fundamental before we even get into finance, because finance is supposedly just a reflection of what's going on in the underlying economy. So we need to start with economics first. And going back to first principles, we need to start with basic trade. So if we start with the top left box here, I'm going to be starting with 3 individuals, Alice, Bob, and Charlie. And before we even get into the first key theme of specialization, I would just mention that everyone originally, as humans, had to do everything themselves. So Alice would have to find food for herself, she'd have to build her own house or dwelling, and find her own means of transportation. And likewise for Bob and Charlie. They each would also have to produce their own food, travel, and do everything themselves. And this was really inefficient because some people were better at certain things than others. And so what happened was we encountered specialization, and that's the first key lesson. So what happened was Alice said, hey, I'm great at building houses, but I'm not so great at building cars. So she decided to focus on being an architect. And Bob said, I'm great at baking, I like baking, I spend a lot of time baking, and that's what interests me, and I'm going to be a baker for a living. And Charlie said, likewise, I'm going to be a car maker. Now, the reason that this was advantageous was because each person spent all their time and really specialized in something, and so they were able to produce more of it and more expertly than if everybody just tried to do everything by themselves. And so this is really the foundations of trade, because if you think about Alice, who's an architect, by specializing in architecture, she doesn't make her own food anymore. So she needs to trade with someone like Bob, who's a baker. And, he makes food. And so that's why they would do the trade. And similarly for Charlie, he makes cars, but he also needs to eat. But this is very efficient for everyone involved. So here we could think of a transaction where Charlie gives Bob a car. It's a car right there. And Bob would give Charlie some bread. And each would be better off, right? Why do they make this trade? Bob, he makes food, but he can only consume so much of his own bread himself before he's full, and he has no real use for the extra food. But he can't get anywhere, so that's why he desires a car. And Charlie, likewise, he can only drive one car at a time, so he would much rather also have food, and so he's willing to trade his extra cars that he makes for some food. And so the key principle here is that everyone values what they produce less and less as they produce more of it, and that's why they're willing to trade. So this is all well and good and is the foundation for why the economy works the way it does. People produce a lot of things and they trade it away for things that they want. But we've identified a problem with this barter transaction, which is Bob may say, you know what, Charlie, I already have an old car, and I don't really need another new car right now. But Charlie, I know you're hungry, so how's this? I'll accept money or an IOU from you. And let's move down to the second box here to see how that works. So money is a special item that allows for many things. Because this is kind of clunky as a transaction, money allows you to be able to defer your consumption or consume things at a later time. So looking at this specific transaction, Bob would give bread to Charlie. So here's a little piece of bread so that he can eat. He's happy. And Charlie issues an IOU, or money, or you can think of it as a dollar, or however you would like to think about money nowadays. On a side note, money has been historically many things. One time it was gold and silver. Today it is paper money, i.e. a dollar bill, for example. or even digital dollars, which we move through the banks, but that will be a topic for another video. So Charlie gives Bob an IOU, and this is advantageous because Bob now can hold on to this IOU and spend it whenever he would like. He can go back to Charlie at some later time and say, Charlie, my old car broke down and now I need a new car. So here's my IOU. You know, I gave you food before to keep you alive. Here I'm back. So you got to fulfill your promise to me. And Bob would give, you know, some money to Charlie, and Charlie would deliver the car to Bob. And in that way, the transaction is settled just like here, except there's a delay in time, which is a lot more convenient for Bob. And the great thing is also, with this money, Bob is not obligated to only get a car from Charlie. He can also make a transaction with Alice here. So he could say, hey, Alice, my car still works. I don't need a new car right now, but you know what? I do need a new house. So here, take this IOU from Charlie, and you can go and claim from him a new car if you need that. And Alice would say, hey, I'm in need of a new car. I'll take that money from you and I'll give you a house. And so they would make the trade. So the great thing about money is that Bob can sell his bread to anyone, any individual, and get this IOU called money. And then he could use that money and spend it on any product he wants. And so that's really attractive because he may want many goods and services and not only from Charlie or Alice. So let's stop here and move on to the third theme for today, which is production and consumption. And this is just a broader view of what we've gone through so far. So instead of just Alice, Bob, and Charlie, we can think of many, many people producing things and then having feasible wants to consume, which leads to things that are being produced, and it's a big cycle. Because we as humans, we are both producers and consumers, right? We produce these things so that we can consume. And the key here also is I say feasible wants, because you know, demand is unlimited. We all want everything, right? Like I want to be able to teleport anywhere in the world instantly, but that's not a feasible want. I can't do that today because there is no technology. No one can produce what I'm seeking. So there's no trade here, there's no transaction. So the production can take the form of many, many different industries, and each one of us will choose to specialize in one of them, right? For example, I'm in the finance industry, so I sell my labor producing financial services, and I earn money that way. Then when I earn the money, I'm here and I have the money, then just like Bob in this situation, you know, I want a car, I want to eat, I want housing, I want to buy toys, I want, you know, Wi-Fi and electricity, I want an iPhone. I can use that money to spend it on whoever I want, right? That IOU, it's just like society saying, you've contributed to the economic pot, here's a sign, your IOU money, and now you can spend it and make your claim on whatever you want. So that's really kind of the basics of trade and what makes the economy go round. So that is it for today. Let me know if you have any comments, and I'll see you in lesson 2.